some Deepak Chopra or Shakti Gawain or somebody coming on talking about the mind-body connection. And
Right.
that really seems to be up right now. Have you noticed that?
We're inundated with it.
Yeah.
Almost to the point where, I'm wondering if we're really understanding it, and it's almost becoming a cliche kind of thing. And I think what I heard being said a lot was by sticking to the touch, right? Sticking to that part of communication that doesn't have to have words and understanding and a bunch of terms behind it and psychology, that's probably the deepest form of communication that we have. And you don't have to mess with the mind. You just get at that level of communication very gently, and everything else seems to take care of itself. Of course, you can't distinguish the difference between the body, mind, and spirit connections. So I think the only thing, what I'm finding with the biomagnetic touch healing is, if we keep it simple, then you can go anywhere on the planet or any level of education or any language, and you can reach out and touch somebody, and you've made a communication, and you allow them to go through whatever they want, and if there's an emotional release, then that happens on its own. But I think the nice part that can happen with touch is it's allowing people to go through what they have to and creating a support system for one another.
And that I like your use of the word communication, because that is what it is. I mean that, and where we touch, I imagine how we touch, in the context in which we do it. I mean, all of those things can create a different language. And I think one of the things that's happened, I know culturally, particularly in the business environment, is that confusion over what does that mean. And I think I'm doing one thing with touch, and you think I'm doing something else. And so being able to step out of that arena and make it clear that what we're doing here is healing, I'm sure must be a help to people.
Yeah,
Eliminate some of that confusion.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you noticed this? I'm sure you have, this upsurge. And what kind of theories do you have in this mind-body connection?
This mind-body connection, although we're talking a lot about it now as if it's something new, is really, we're just discovering something that's been inherent in human beings, since we first walked on two legs. And it is getting a lot of press, and that's good. But I think what it's doing is it's pointing out the fact that we have these artificial constructions because of words. We call something a mind, and we think the mind is something that's up here in the brain. And we think that the body is the rest of this down here. So we've created these artificial barriers that really were never there to begin with. So our language is what's really deficient. Our language doesn't accurately describe what the best word we've come up with now is body-mind. So yes, it is fascinating. It is fascinating. And the way Western medicine has been practiced is that we very much segmentalize people into the brain. So if you have what you perceive as a mental or emotional problem, you go to see a psychologist. If you have what you perceive as a physical problem, you go to see a doctor who will look at very specifically at one very specific physical part. Right. Right. And so we've segmentalized people, and what bodywork does, it tends to bring the person all back together and reconnect the mind, body, and spirit. Again, something that we've kind of lost along the way, especially here in the Bay Area, where a lot of us work in very technical jobs, where we're very much in our head all day long.
You bet.
And we get disconnected from what's going on here.
Yeah, and just sort of kind of walking heads.
The body is just something to carry the brain around.
Yeah. Well, we kind of treat it like a machine and expect it to just keep functioning. But it also strikes me that I know as a therapist, for many years, I've always had a lot of respect for the body's language. Someone comes in and they're experiencing back pain. They're having difficulty with headaches, difficulty with this or that, gastrointestinal problems. Invariably, the body is speaking a language that maybe they have not articulated or even become aware of yet.
Well, certainly.
But it's like, I think of it in terms of the body keeps upping the ante. It's like, okay, you won't listen at this level, so now we'll have a back problem. Now we'll have this, sort of hello.
Yeah, the analogy I usually use with my clients and with other people is that your body will start talking to you in a whisper, and it'll whisper to you, Mary, there's something wrong. You need to pay attention. And then if you don't listen to that whisper, which we normally don't do, we'll pop some aspirin, take a few pills, hope it'll go away. The body will speak a little louder and say, Mary, there's something you need to pay attention to here. And again, on and on, until it's screaming out to you in pain, when you can't get up anymore, when your neck is so stiff you can't turn your head. Then usually, at that point is usually when people decide, okay, I can't ignore this anymore, I need to get some help, and hopefully they'll go to a physician somewhere where they can get some help with that, but definitely your body speaks to you. We just don't listen.
Right. And that's what we're trying to do is we're sort of becoming on a grassroots level with this particular healing technique, because we're trying to get this as a preventative thing so families can have it, the kids can be working on the parents, we have a lot of parents now working on their newborns, and hopefully we're trying to create with the foundation and the work of the foundation a lineage that will go on to this next generation, because I'm really seeing it's really the only way to bring in an answer to a lot of these problems, whether it's the social welfare system or pains or the little whispers of the body, and all of a sudden it's a full-blown problem. If people will start touching one another for the purpose of healing right away, then you create a whole new habit in the family structure, in the couple structure. We have some elders now taking it to some retirement communities because they're realizing the two couples, they go to the doctor, the woman goes in, the man sits there and waits, and the woman comes out, and they never talk about what the problem was. And so we have a lot of elders getting certified just because they want to bring it to help in the elder relationships after you retire, to say, hey, let's communicate again. Let's touch one another and help one another through our aging process, and let's give it to our grandchildren. And so hopefully the idea is we start getting people just to touch while it's still a whisper and not when it's a full-blown problem.
Well, and it's also a question, too, I think, of respect for our bodies as actual organisms, or as part of our spiritual selves, because that it reminds me that we have this on the one hand, every single person seems to need at one point in their life to join a gym. All right, so on the one hand, we've got this whole focus on when you do bodybuilding and all this kind of thing and buy the right spandex outfit. And yeah, so there's that almost worship sometimes of the external body, but there's so little interest about the inner mechanism. It's sort of like, well, if I look okay, then I must be fine.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Yeah, until the body begins to say, well, maybe that's not enough. You know, maybe 40 minutes on the Stairmaster is excessive.
Right. Well, there are many ways to take care of yourself, and exercise is certainly one important thing that you should do. But there are many facets to being a healthy person.
Now, I know we've talked occasionally about this idea of massage therapy, and massage being seen, I know one of your pet peeves is it being seen as a luxury item. Well, and of course, from your perspective, and I know from mine, because I've been to see you, that it's certainly not a luxury. I mean, it is a healing
Most definitely. Again, the analogy that I use with people, and I've probably said this to you before, people feel guilty about if they have a muscular ache or pain to see a massage therapist, or if they have a lot of stress in their life to see a massage therapist to help with the stress and get some relaxation. Yet, and they feel guilty about that. Yet, I ask them, well, if you had a toothache, would you feel guilty about going to see your dentist and having it fixed? And they'd say, well, no. Would you feel guilty about spending money on getting your tooth fixed? Well, no. Well, then why would you feel guilty about having a muscular ache or pain or having stress, which has a definite impact on your health? Why would you feel guilty about that? So that's the analogy I use. I don't see it as something that's optional. Relaxation is not optional. We need it. We need the balance in our lives. And a lot of times we get off balance, and then we start to show those physical effects of the imbalance. And
you know, science is even starting to show that. Doctors, a lot of research are showing that actually 60 to 80% of our disease is just stress related. So they're actually telling us, you know, do some breathing, do some Tai Chi or meditation, or do some of these healing techniques that are lightly touching the body and getting you just to relax a little bit. So, you know, if reaching out and touching or holding somebody reduces our stress by 50%, if it reduces it 10%, who cares what the percentage is? If it reduces it anything, we're already one step towards helping one another to take care of our health, because I have a feeling it's probably the #1 issue with everybody on the planet is their health.
Is their health. Well, yeah, I mean, it's so foundational to functioning in general.
Right.
Because of the connection we're talking about, I know that certainly you might be able to hear some of my cold, and when I don't feel well, I mean, every part of me is not happy. I mean, emotionally or spiritually or everything else. And I think it is something often we will take for granted. And when I look at HMOs and things like that, you know, moving to how can I get the least amount of health care possible for the least amount of money, you know, that whole idea of the whole national conscience around consolidating and sort of saying, well, prevention, we don't really want to pay for that, and we don't want to pay for this, we don't want to pay for that. And it's almost, in some ways, when I look at my business, forcing people to become very ill before they'll get some help.
Definitely, I agree with you. And when insurance companies realize that keeping people healthy and doing preventive care in the long run is going to cost them far less, like you say, then if they wait till someone's acutely ill, then we'll start to see that they'll be paying for a lot of preventive therapies, and they'll be paying for stress reduction programs, and they'll be paying for meditation classes, they'll be paying for Tai Chi and body work, and on and on and on, because that's far, far less expensive than fixing people when they're sick.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So it's like, well, I know in my business, if you're not, you know, extremely, you know, feel like killing yourself or some sort of extreme crisis, then it's considered just sort of supportive work, and we don't pay for that. So,
A luxury
yeah,
item,
it's a
right.
luxury item.
Right.
So there is that whole shift, I think, that on the one hand, yeah, everybody's talking about it, but I find it encouraging.
I think
that-
it's definitely changing.
Mm-hmm.
Trends are definitely moving in the direction that healthcare is going to become, I feel, more holistic, more aware, like you say, of the mind-body connection, and more aware of the benefits of preventive care. We're not there yet, but I think things are moving in that direction.
Well, the whole issue too of getting back to herbal medicines and things like that. I mean, less, you know, being able to say what around us can we use. I think the bottom line is what you're talking about, which is, you know, stress reduction. You know, you don't need 16,000 vitamins if, in fact, your lifestyle supports you relaxing and enjoying yourself.
And that's why we're trying to get the healing touch, the biomagnetic touch healing, just to allow people to make touching a way of life instead of something that's outside of our day-to-day life.
Right, that it's just sort of only in a crisis
Right.
kind of thing. Well, we need to close. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you for being with us tonight. In the upcoming weeks, we'll address children and adults of mentally ill parents and fetal alcohol syndrome. I'm Mary Crocker Cook. Good night.
For topic suggestions, write to Bay Area Psychology at 1723 Hamilton Avenue, Suite A, San Jose, California.